It's time for Top Story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Two guests today, Hornell Democrat leader Sam Nasca here in Segment 1. Coming up in Segment 2, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Well, this week in the news, the Steuben County Deputies Association denounced the politicizing of acts of violence against law enforcement. They're, of course, referring to online comments, both social media and otherwise, the regular media, about the New York City police assassinations against the police. Another news this week, Mayor Sean Hogan issued a statement about the Lowe's pilot, the 1999 airport deal, and the 1992 Walmart Plaza deal. Of course, the top story stayed wide. Former Governor Mario Cuomo passed away Thursday night. On to talk about Governor Mario Cuomo today is Hornell Democrat leader Sam Nasca. Sam, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Sam, wanted to start out with some audio sound bites. This is Governor Mario Cuomo speaking about his own father at the 1984 Democrat National Convention.
And it's a story, ladies and gentlemen, that I didn't read in a book or learn in a classroom. I saw it and lived it like many of you. I watched a small man with thick calluses on both his hands work 15 and 16 hours a day. I saw him once literally bleed from the bottoms of his feet. A man who came here uneducated, alone, unable to speak the language, who taught me all I needed to know about faith and hard work by the simple eloquence of his example.
It seemed Mario Cuomo remembered where he came from. He was once asked what he thought that Americans think of themselves and do they believe in American exceptionalism or not. Here's what Mario Cuomo said.
The entrepreneur class, the business class, which is doing better than anybody, large business particularly, and people like myself who are in professions that earn a good deal more money than they're entitled to, we're doing exceptionally well. So you have 5% of the people over $100,000. That's the largest percentage of Americans ever to earn that kind of money. More millionaires and billionaires than ever. Now then, who is it that thinks of us as exceptional? The business class that is spending a tremendous amount of time investing its money in other parts of the world because the labor is cheaper. They're not trying too hard to, make us the strongest place in world history. I don't know who the they is.
So it seems that, Sam Nasca, that Mario Cuomo remembered his roots?
Oh, absolutely he did. I think that that was part of his well-publicized decision to not run for president and to not be considered for the Supreme Court, was that he loved his roots here in New York. He felt very attached to New York and its residents, and he loved raising his family here. I guess testimony to that can be referenced in his 1984 speech at the National Democratic Convention that he was lauded for, and which kind of propelled him to the discussion of running for president. That speech, he referenced the two cities, the one shining example on the hill, and the other, which he characterized as the wealthy and the middle class, which he referenced in stark differences, and that was kind of the topic of that 1984 speech that he gave at the Democratic National Convention, and I think it mirrored how he felt about those that were disadvantaged.
Sam, one thing, and audio there I should mention came from C-SPAN. One thing that you run across when you look up Mario Cuomo and his life is the word unions. Tell us, how did your union leader in Albany, United Transportation Union, tell us how did Mario Cuomo treat the unions?
Mario was good to work with the unions, although he was in office and came into office when the economy and the economics were dire. There were some budget issues, and he had to take some hard stands with the unions. He compelled the unions, basically the public employee unions, to take what they call a lag pay to balance the budget. And a lag pay is giving up 7 days' pay, which you will be paid at the end of your employment relationship. That was just one of the things that he did that unions were not very happy with. But overall, Mario had a good relationship with the unions. Again, as the governor, you have to at times take a hard stand, and I think testimony to that is some of the decisions that Andrew has had to make as governor as well, that maybe not be well accepted with the unions. But as chief executive running the state, there are times when you simply have to make those decisions.
Sam Nasca, you mentioned the fact that Mario Cuomo chose not to run for the presidency.
I accept the judgment of the national chairman of our party that it would be in the best interest of the Democratic Party that I abandon any such effort now, so as to avoid whatever inconvenience and disruption to the process is created by the uncertain possibility of another candidacy.
Sam, were you surprised when Mario Cuomo decided not to run in 1991?
Yeah, I really was, because he was certainly a front-running candidate at the time. In fact, I think that if he had run at the time Bill Clinton was chosen as a candidate, I think he would have been the candidate. But
Mario Cuomo,
yes. But he, for whatever reason, chose to decline that, and I think it was tied to his family, to his roots in New York, and just a feeling that he wanted to remain here and do what he could for the state.
You talk about New York State. Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan on our newscast on Friday morning spoke of his memories of Mario Cuomo helping out Morrison Knudsen.
He came to what was then Morrison Knudsen. He was responsible for Morrison Knudsen getting its first contract, those red subway cars from New York City. It was a $20 million contract. And I remember going to Albany and to the Capitol building, where there was a ceremony, and the governor awarded a facsimile of a check for $20 million to Morrison Knudsen Corporation.
Sam Nasca, do you remember those days?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Griffin and I as well traveled to Albany and met with the governor in the Red Room, as Sean has described, and were given an opportunity to speak and voice our appreciation, our thoughts on the awarding of that contract. He was very supportive of upstate. I can remember a bumper sticker, and I think I still have one. It says, "Mario Cuomo loves New York, all of it." And that's the way he felt.
We're talking with Hornell Democrat leader Sam Nasca. Moving on to another Governor Cuomo, Governor Andrew Cuomo. Governor Andrew Cuomo gave his inaugural speech on Thursday at noon, just hours before his father Mario Cuomo passed away. Here's what Governor Andrew Cuomo said about upstate.
We have much more to do. We have to rebuild the upstate economy all across upstate New York by replicating the successful model that we've used in Buffalo. We must address chronic high poverty in this state in many of our urban areas, from the South Bronx to Rochester.
Now, Sam Nasca, many on the right are criticizing the governor for his recent moves on for the recent fracking ban. Do you think that the governor can, as he says, replicate the success of Buffalo to other parts of upstate, including, at some level, our area?
Well, I think, yes, I think he can. I think he certainly is dedicated to doing that, and I think some of the things that he's done has resonated to some degree. He has directed the Siting Commission on casinos to locate another casino in upstate New York. I think some of his programs that he already has in place, he will enhance, like Startup New York and the nanotech perpetuation in New York. I think he's looking to upstate New York for some of that. He has pushed 6 major nano companies to locate in Utica and establish a world-class nanotech project there. I think that he has more projects than he has announced in the making that will enhance upstate New York. He has committed to install economic efforts and projects that will replace the anticipated economics of fracking. And I believe he will. You'll see more of that in his State of the State speech, which will be coming up this next week. I believe he's dedicated to upstate New York, and I firmly believe in his efforts.
And a final question for you. Sam Nasca, Hornell Democrat leader. Mayor Sean Hogan gave us a statement earlier this week about the meeting that they had earlier this week. It was about the Lowe's pilot and efforts to try to continue that, and taking care of some loose ends on the 1999 airport deal and some loose ends on the 1992 Walmart Plaza deal. Any updates or any information you can share with us on those issues?
Further discussions are going on, but I believe that we've kind of, I don't know what Jimmy has released to you, but I believe that we have pretty clear understandings on all of those issues, and that there will be a resolution that will be beneficial to all, Lowe's, the town, the city of Hornell, and all those involved.
Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on today, Hornell Democrat leader Sam Nasca.
Thank you, Brian. It was a pleasure to be here.
And thank you for sharing your memories of former Governor Mario Cuomo. Assemblyman Phil Palmesano is next. Stay with us. Back on Top Story here on AM 1480 WLEA. I'm Brian O'Neill, and we're on now with Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Assemblyman, thanks for joining us this weekend.
Oh, Brian, it's always good to be with you. Thank you.
Assemblyman, first off, the segment one was mostly about Mario Cuomo. I wanted to touch on that with you. You told me once on the phone that one of the big thrills in your young political life was meeting Governor Mario Cuomo.
Oh, yes, it really was. I was, in 1990, I was part of the Assembly Internship Program, and I was at an event or function that was going on, and one of my fellow colleagues was interns was in a line, and Governor Mario Cuomo was there, and he was kind of introducing people in the line, and I remember saying to the gentleman next to my intern colleague, like, what's going on? And he goes, this young Italian intern's going to meet the governor. I go, well, I'm a young Italian intern, and they go, well, get in line, and I met him, and it was certainly a privilege to meet him, and I think the thing I was most impressed by him was after he left that line, he got on an elevator and started heading back towards the Capitol, and he ran into the assembly member that I was serving under, the late Dick Miller out of the Binghamton area, and Assemblyman Miller came back to me and said he remembered my name, where I was from, and it was pretty impressive, and I still have a picture of with him from that day, and when I was elected into the Assembly, I found that picture of him, and I sent a copy, and then there was a picture I had with Governor Andrew Cuomo recently after he was in, and I sent them both pictures at the time, just saying, I started out, met his dad at that time, and it was just for a 20-year-old kid who had an interest in politics, it was quite an experience. And I remember watching him give speeches. He was an incredible speaker, an incredible orator, and very passionate about his beliefs. So certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to Governor Andrew Cuomo and his family at this very, very difficult time, because certainly we all know how hard it is to lose a parent, for sure.
So you met him when you were a junior, or maybe a senior when you were a student at Bonaventure, Assemblyman?
Yep, it was my junior year, because I was doing the internship spring of my junior year. I met him up in Albany.
The governor's state of the state, this was announced on Friday afternoon. It was originally going to be held on Wednesday, January 7th in Albany. Now they've pushed it ahead to Wednesday, January 21st. For obvious reasons, the governor won't be able to make it, funeral arrangements and whatnot. Assemblyman, your thoughts on the upcoming budget?
Well, I think certainly we still have a lot of work to do. After the decision that was made on fracking, not to let fracking move forward in the southern tier, I think that's going to have a major impact on the southern tier, especially those counties along the Pennsylvania border where fracking would take place. I'd really like to see the governor focus on the southern tier and address those problems, and then also lay out what his plan is now for the southern tier to help improve the economy, to help bring good-paying jobs here so our young people can stay here and have a living, so our families aren't struggling to get by, so they can have good paying jobs to take care of their family, and so that we can encourage private sector investment back into the economy, because that's what we need more than anything. If we can encourage private sector investment back in our economy, that's going to foster that type of investment, which will create good-paying jobs and provide the tax revenue we need for our important programs like education and our roads and bridges, and they're not.
Casinos. Now, that's not a big issue around here, obviously. They weren't going to cite any casinos here, but do you think, Assemblyman Palmesano, that Tioga Downs would get a casino?
The process that just went through did not provide a casino for the southern tier, even though it was considered a southern tier district. I represent part of Seneca County. I've never been a big proponent of the casinos anyway, because I think the governor has really put the focus on casinos being the where-all, be-all to solve the economic woes of upstate New York, and I think that's the wrong approach. We need an approach that's going to encourage manufacturing, for example, so we can build and make things here. Manufacturing jobs are good-paying jobs that people can raise a family on and take care of, have a good living. I'd like to see a rebirth of manufacturing, and really that's where fracking is helpful, because you provide low-cost power to our manufacturers. Our energy costs are some of the highest burden that provides a high cost of doing business in this state. So, it's my hope that, ultimately, Tioga Downs would get a license. I don't know how that process is going to work. The governor asked the Casino Sitting Board to cite one in the southern tier. The other person who was looking at it from the southern tier, from the Binghamton area, had actually backed away and said they're supporting a casino at Tioga Downs. I would like to see that happen, although, even if it does, that can't be our savior for our economic woes in upstate New York. We need a private sector investment throughout the southern tier, and casinos isn't going to solve our economic woes. We need good private sector investment, and hopefully we'll create manufacturing jobs and things of the like that encourage people to invest and maybe become entrepreneurs as well.
Talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, a Corning Republican originally from Hornell. Assemblyman, in fact, your district was, Hornell was part of your district until that committee came up with that screwy map in the redistricting process. Assemblyman, wanted to ask you about the settlement money. Apparently there's $5 billion that is going to New York State. Does it go to the comptroller's office, and does he decide who gets it, or how does that work?
Well, I think ultimately the legislature and the governor will make that determination. It's certainly better to have those funds than be dealing with deficits like we did before. But I think we need to be very careful in how we handle these dollars. This isn't going to be a recurring revenue that comes in. This is a one-time a one-shot revenue that's coming in from these bank settlements that are going on. And $5 billion is a substantial amount of money. I do not believe this money should be used for ongoing recurring projects and funds. I mean, we have a budget process to do that. From my perspective, there's a couple options that I would support. Would be one, we should be looking to pay down our debt. We have a significant amount of debt in New York State. It would be a good idea to try to pay down some of that debt. Number two, which I'm a big proponent of, is funding for infrastructure, our local roads and their bridges. And I want to make sure, even if it goes for infrastructure, it's not just for state roads and state bridges. We have a formula through the CHIPS formula that delineates money right to our local municipalities. So money would go to Hornell for the CHIPS program, and then they would decide on what roads and bridges to fix. I think that's a fairer way to do it, and I want to make sure if any funding does go for infrastructure that our locals are taken care of in that process, and it's just not given to the state to make the decision. If it's funded through like our CHIPS formula, that would allow the localities, the town of Hornellsville, the village and town of Canisteo, Hornell, the surrounding areas, to make decisions on what infrastructure projects to take care of in their own district. And that's important, too, because for every dollar you spend on local roads and bridges with state dollars, that's one less dollar that comes out of the local property taxpayer. And there's such an incredible unmet need for our local infrastructure, and it's very tangible to taxpayers, that thumpity thump on a road or if a bridge is out. We've made some progress over the last few years trying to get increased funding, but we certainly have a long way to go. So I would be a proponent of spending for infrastructure, especially if we're deriving that money right to our locals so they have flexibility and control on how to make those decisions.
Down to just a couple of minutes, Assemblyman, was there any topics I didn't bring up or any final thoughts you wanted to add?
Well, I don't think you can talk about an upcoming budget without talking about education and mandate relief. The area of education, it seems like the governor's been very going after our teachers, and he's been going after our local governments. On the mandate relief side, the governor's been talking about the size of governments in all these localities, and he wants to downsize that. And that might work, but you can downsize governments all you want and consolidate them all you want, but unless you get at the underlying problem, the true cost drivers that continue to drive up these local budgets, these structural problems, all you're going to do is have bigger governments with the same structural problems. We got to get at these mandates to continue to drive up our local budgets. And you can talk about freezing property taxes and capping property taxes, but what we need to do in New York State is reduce property taxes. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get at these mandates that keep driving up these local budgets and therefore property taxes for our local property taxpayers. And on the education front, Brian, our schools have struggled because of the gap elimination adjustment cuts. It's my hope that this is the year where we finally restore and eliminate the gap elimination to put our schools on an equal footing. The governor talks a lot about competition, and our kids can compete with anyone, but we need to be on a level playing field, and the best way we can do that is get rid of that gap elimination adjustment as quickly as possible. And certainly the issue of Common Core is not going to go away. I'm going to continue to speak out against the problems that this has developed. I've heard from numbers of parents, teachers, students, and I'm not going to stop talking about an issue that it continues to be problematic. Look what we did on fracking in 6 years. People wanted to pause on that, but when it comes to our kids' education, we have a bureaucracy in Albany that wants to just kind of go full speed ahead without any regard to how it impacts our children. In my opinion, we should be pausing and taking a break and studying this a little closer and evaluate input from our local teachers and those people with expertise in education before we continue to move forward with Common Core.
Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, I want to thank you very much for coming on this weekend.
Thank you, Brian.
Stay with us. An all-new show next on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.